Hi, in the previous lecture we created a CSS file, we linked the CSS file to our HTML file, and we changed the styling of our title. In this lecture we are going to change the styling of the other elements of the page. Let's do that. So we are done with the H2 element. Let's do the form now. To refer to the form, you do this, input, and then the curly brackets. Why input? Well, because normally these are all input tags, but we use the Flask WT Forms extension or library, and so we didn't have to write tags such as input. So in other words, all these lines are translated into input tags. Therefore, we can refer to these elements with the input keyword. The input tags would also have different types. So if we wrote HTML, for these text boxes we would write type text. And for buttons we would again write input, but type would be equal to submit. So such input types would create the text boxes in here. So a type text with the labels also. And this type of input with submit would create the button. So basically this is the equivalent of that. So let me delete that. And this is also the equivalent of that, and so on. I'll delete that as well. So the type is important. Why did I mention the type? The type is important because it helps you distinguish between the text boxes and the button. So if you're referring from your CSS, if you're referring to the text boxes, you'd write type text. Now we can write parameters here such as color, etc., which would affect the text boxes only. So these ones in here, not the button. If you want to write attributes to stylize the button, you'd write here submit, because that's the input type for buttons. Right? So we're going to keep these two blocks here. So let's do something with the text input boxes. How about changing the width to 100%? Control-Shift-R or Command-Shift-R or Command-Option-R. And so I was expecting the text boxes to be extended 100% horizontally, but that didn't happen. So we did something wrong, and I'm glad this error occurred. So you know that when something doesn't go as you expected, you are not going to get an error, as long as CSS coding is concerned. In Python we get errors, and that's a good thing because we know where to look. In this case we didn't get an error, and the good thing is that CSS is simple. So here I think I should not have this, because this is treated as a sort of a list. So this is part of input and it should have no spaces. So go ahead and refresh again, and yeah, this time it's working. So you see this long text box. Doesn't look perfect for now, but we will improve it. Let's add some padding of 8 pixel px and 8 px. And see how that changes the form. So what happened is that we added some space between the text and the borders of the buttons. Let's move on. How about some margin of 10 pixels vertically and 0 horizontally, and don't forget the semicolon. So see how that is going to affect the space between the borders of the text boxes and the labels. Notice the current space between those. Now that I did the change in the CSS, I can reload the page, and you see we have 10 pixels between these two elements. And that's okay for the text boxes. Let's work with the button. We have the error here because I copied and pasted the code from there to here, so we need to remove that space. Let's set a width of 100, semicolon, background color of the button, so the actual color of the button. Let's say yellow green semicolon. How did I come up with yellow green? Well, you can search on Google for CSS colors and you'll find a lot of pages which have all the names for different colors. So you can either use the names as you see in here or the color codes in your code. So you can also use the color code for yellow green if you are able to find yellow green somewhere in here. There's green yellow as well, which is different from yellow green, and so on. Now, color is another thing, and I'll make this white. So with these three attributes, let's see how our web page will look like now. So this is a button, it's green, the background color is green, and the color, which means the color of the label of the button, is white. And the button extends 100% horizontally. Now you can see that the text looks very uncomfortable there. It's being pushed by the borders of the button. So let's change that. The way you do that is again by using some padding, as we did here. So padding, maybe 12 pixels by 12 pixels. Reload, yeah, looks better. I'm going to remove the borders of the button. The way to do that is by saying border equal to none. Yeah, I removed it. And make the border with round corners. Maybe 6. That's the level of roundness. So you can see now that the corners are a bit round, which looks nice. Lastly, what I'm going to do is I'm going to change the visual style of the entire page. So like the background color, for example. To refer to the page, to the entire page, you can refer to the body tag. You see the body tags. So it starts in here and it ends in here. That means every element is in the body. So if you want to apply some general setting, general styling to everything, you can refer to the body tag and use the curly brackets and add the attributes here, such as background color. Let's use ghost white. Refresh. Yeah, I like this color, looks better. And you can do things like padding again, maybe 20 pixels. Refresh. So it added some space between everything and the borders of the screen. So I think that is enough. And I think we have a better looking page now. If we resize the page, it will be responsive. So you see the button changes the size. It looks like a nice app. Now, if you want to change the styling of the other pages, because in this lecture we worked on the build form page, if you want to change the styling of the other pages, you would first create another CSS file and then add this link to your HTML page linking to that file, and then start to code in that new CSS file. So thanks for following. I hope you enjoyed this and I hope you learned a bit of CSS, and I'll talk to you later. See you.